Rigging some stuff up. Wanted to get you guys a tip. It's been a really long time since I put any content out there on YouTube, so I'm going to make it a priority this year. I'm going to try to film some tournaments for you guys and maybe put some information out that you don't typically hear about. So one thing I wanted to talk about was throwing a jerkbait. One modification I do to my jerkbaits, depending on what style of fishing a jerkbait I'm wanting to achieve. This is one of my jerkbait boxes. The one I have set up more so to fish that late winter spring transition. It's March here in Oregon, so that's right now. Got a multitude of baits. I got 110+1 juniors in here, throw those a lot. I got some standard 110s, 110+1s mixed in here as well, and some bigger jerkbaits like this Duo 130 here, which actually has some lead wire hanging off of it, and that's what I'm going to talk about. I guess in my opinion, the key to getting maximum performance out of your jerkbait is kind of like being a little bit analytical with how it's tuned. Obviously they will work kind of regardless of the weighting that you have applied to them. But one thing I always do is have a spool of this lead wire in my tackle box. What that allows me to do is add a little bit of weight to different portions of the bait, if you will, and make sure it either, you're gonna think suspends, but not always. Typically in the wintertime, when the water's really cold, I do want that bait to perfectly suspend or ever so slowly sink, but I really don't want it to sink fast. That being said, as the water starts to get just a little bit warmer, I prefer that bait to sink a little bit faster. So recently I've been fishing some of these bigger jerk baits, and I'm actually really putting a bunch of this lead wire on these front two hooks to achieve maximum depth out of this bait. So I've been catching some fish on these guys, and I'm getting them down 12 to 18 feet, showing them a technique they really are not used to seeing. A lot of guys throw a Vision 110+1 or a Stacy 90, and they're gonna get that 10 or 11 feet out of it. But being able to weight that bait and sink it down is pretty advantageous when you're fishing in a region where maybe a lot of guys aren't doing that. It's going to allow you to apply that technique in a depth zone that they otherwise are not familiar with seeing it. And it's still not going to sink so fast it falls out of the strike zone like, say, a spoon or something like that. So I can cast this guy out there, standard suspending jerkbait with a good amount of weight on the front hook, maybe the second hook if I really want to get it down there. And I can just jerk it down, let it start to sink down in the strike zone, and then just kind of hold it there. I can even jerk my rod tip in an upward fashion and have that bait achieve a little bit of upward mobility. So keep that in mind. Lead wire in your jerkbait box. Once I get into warmer water, I actually like to throw a jerkbait that floats a little more. So instead of having all the lead wire on there, I'll actually swap out all my hooks with lead wire, and I'll put on a little bit lighter hooks. Make the fish travel a little bit further to get the bait. Do keep in mind when you are jerkbait fishing that different water temperatures are gonna have different water composition. And what I mean by that is the colder the water, the more oxygen it's gonna retain, where the warmer the water, the less oxygen it's gonna retain. So you may find that you're perfectly suspending winter jerkbait in the summertime starts to sink really fast. So what you can do is just obviously take some of that lead off of it. But I'm pretty fortunate. I have a little pond up in my yard here, and I can throw the bait in there and kind of test it out and give it a look and make sure it's performing how I want it to. And again, experiment with it. Oftentimes on the water, we think we're right, we know what we want to do, but then we give it a few casts and let the fish determine for us. Is probably always going to be the best route to establish, I guess, a really strong pattern. So lead wire, usually fly shops have this, so in this region there's a lot of those, but you might have to get it online. This is 0.7 millimeters. It's what I like to use because it's pretty hefty. They have a lot thinner versions of lead wire, but this I can just kind of wrap on that hook. It does show up a little bit. You can use it on swim baits and glide baits too, but I always use it on my jerk baits to get the right sink rate and suspension rate depending on the conditions. So get you a pair of these. Like, these are just Bubba scissors. They're about a year old, but they're sharp. They cut braid really well, but they're awesome for cutting that lead wire because they're pretty thick gauge steel. So get out there this spring. Definitely throw around a jerkbait. Excellent lure selection for pre-spawn staging fish. It's actually pretty good for bed fishing if you can get a perfect suspending bait and kind of, like, say in dirty water, just get it in their general vicinity and get a little bit of hang time in the general area of their bed. If you can see them, there's, in my opinion, better ways to catch them, but sometimes in the spring in dirty water, I'll throw it all the way through. And then again in the summer, I'll switch to more of a floating jerkbait. So if there's something you guys want to see, any lure, swim baits, whatever it is, let me know. I'd be glad to expand upon it. And hopefully we can get a lot of videos out this year, teach you guys some tricks about fishing, help you put some more fish in the boat or on the bank if that's what you're doing.